Hey there, episode 174. We're going to hear a story from my guest, Rodney Thompson, and his inspiring story of being an IT systems administrator of 30 years and turning his attention to commercial real estate and the importance of turning your W-2 into passive income. More of his story and more coming up.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Rodney Thompson. He's a commercial real estate investor and founder of Solaris Capital Management. Rodney, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And how you doing, my friend?
Doing really good. Thanks, Dwaine. I appreciate the invitation being on the show.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I love hearing about people's stories and transitioning into commercial real estate. And your story is very inspiring. I think that's a very big topic for this discussion. Can you kind of talk about how you got started in real estate and kind of what your current focus is on?
Sure. We, and I say we because my wife is in on this. She doesn't have an active day-to-day role, but we approach it as both of us working on this because it's benefiting us together. But we have always looked at wanting to get into some sort of real estate, and we've done single family, and where we thought we were going to end up concentrating is on storage, self-storage. And my wife, would always point out driving down the road, like, oh, hey, we need one of those and we need one of those. And I didn't know anything about syndication at the time. And I always said, that's great, but how are we going to afford something like that? And so it was always a dream of ours to be able to own some sort of a large asset like that, but didn't know the means. So I think a lot of people see single family as a digestible asset class to go after. And so that's what we did. And we were Bigger Pockets fans. And I would listen to those podcasts. And I began branching out, listening to other podcasts, and ran across somebody talking about multifamily and talking about economies of scale and forced appreciation. And I just was in wonderment. I was like, that's amazing that you can do that with a piece of property, and the way it's valued is completely different. And so I started really looking into doing multifamily and got involved with a group out of Dallas a couple of years ago. And I haven't looked back since. It's just a great asset class.
Absolutely. And then, so you said your educational stuff was kind of like from curiosity, and then you learned from the podcast, and then you kind of got deeper into it. As far as kind of your educational stuff, was the group kind of bringing you in as kind of like mentors, or more kind of like it took some time to kind of get educated before you started actually, digging into investing?
I think that as soon as I started listening to podcasts, I began my education. And everybody reads Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of all of those teething books on investing. And I just tried to look for all kinds of different things to consume, whether it was going to meetups, whether it was talking to other individuals, or books or podcasts. If it had anything to do with real estate, I was consuming it.
Absolutely. And as far as kind of, I know as much damage as kind of COVID is, and everyone's kind of hunkered down and shut in place, and kind of some changes there that people had to get adjusted to. You was mentioned to me before we started recording that actually gave you an opportunity to be able to kind of take more time to dedicate into your investing business. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, everybody has a different perspective on excuse me, on what 2020 was. And there's no doubt that there were some calamities caused by 2020. But I think that a lot of people are glad that 2020 is gone. I've heard people call 2020 a train wreck. But as weird as it sounds, I think 2020 could be and has been for me a beneficial time. And I know that sounds weird, but the great thing about when you're presented with challenges, if you look at what is standing in your way and you figure out a way to overcome that, I think it makes you grow. And with COVID, because we couldn't tour properties, the lenders were afraid of what may happen to the market, so they were withdrawing their funds. Then when they started lending again, they required a lot of reserves, and sellers didn't know what was going on, so they were pulling properties off the market because all they could see was another 2008. Whether it was that bad or not, they didn't want to lose value in their property. And buyers, they were hoping for COVID discount, and really what didn't happen was the COVID discount. So lenders were restricting what they were lending. Buyers eventually started coming back on the market, but collections stayed high. I mean, all through the whole pandemic, we have a Class C, kind of a B minus C plus property in Montgomery, Alabama, and our collections were over 90% all through COVID. And so the value of the property didn't dip, and any of the properties that were on the market didn't dip. And so when everything started withdrawing, I looked at, well, what can I do if I can't go look at properties? What are other areas that I need to be working on? And a lot of it was self-improvement and working on my brand. And so I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I still do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I spent a lot of time working on my LinkedIn profile. I worked with people like Ellis Hammond and Yona Weiss on LinkedIn strategies to gather more connections. And I I also started a podcast with two other guys up in Minneapolis, and getting ready to launch a second podcast here. So I really use that time wisely, and because Netflix is a nice thing maybe to catch a movie at night, but television in general is kind of a big time waster. And so I wanted to do something else with that time. If I couldn't be out touring properties, there were other things that could be doing. And I really think that I am seeing the benefits of concentrating in those areas.
I love that a lot. It's just because I was just thinking the same thing, talking to my wife, kind of reflecting over the years. And I was like, we spent a lot of time like educating ourselves, reading, spending more time with the kids, kind of focusing on what's more important, because we kind of know, like, it's not going to be forever, and we have to kind of look towards the future and then kind of preparing. And that's especially kind of great with your story, as you've been working for 30 years in IT and transitioning out and working on these such large projects and thinking about the future. That is the perfect time to be concentrated on your mindset and how you can be able to, develop and build your business. And for the people that trying to want to model the way you do it, that are working and want to be able to invest and look towards the future. And then initially, most people think getting into real estate, single family or small residential. Can you talk about, and I know you mentioned it a little bit before, about the true benefits of investing in large commercial real estate, and then we'll kind of entryway as far as kind of some steps of how they can get into those type of deals?
Sure. There are actually a lot of benefits to being in commercial real estate. If I have a single family house and it's vacant, it's 100% vacancy. If I have 100 units and I have 5 units empty, I'm at 5% vacancy. Now, there's other factors there because you have what's called economic vacancy. But if you're looking at my occupancy level, I'm at 95%. I'm still cash flowing. My break-even point is probably going to be somewhere in the 60% occupancy range. Multifamily real estate is also valued different than single-family houses. This is a very attractive thing because I can control the net operating income of the asset, and that is the thing that controls the value. So you take net operating income divided by the divided by the cap rate, and you get your value. So if you can increase your NOI either by reducing expenses or increasing income, or both, which would be the preferable way to do it, you can increase the value of your property. I thought that was amazing. And what the example I heard is, if you have a 200 unit property and you increase rent by $50, you've added $1.8 million to the value of that property. And that's awesome. And so those are some very attractive things that I saw with multifamily real estate.
Absolutely. And as far as kind of like, I know you had a certain path to how you got in there. You kind of found the right people and kind of got into the business. Can you talk about it from, most people are not familiar with like the term syndication, and how as a W-2 worker can be able to invest and own a piece of this that you're talking about?
Sure. So one of the things that I recognized early on is that I needed coaching. I could possibly do this on my own, but the more I listened to and educated myself, I began to understand that large multifamily is a team sport. You can't do it by yourself. You're going to have lawyers and brokers and mortgage brokers, and then you're going to have partners for net worth and capital raising and all of the different aspects that go into purchasing a large multifamily. And you talk to a lot of people, and they say, well, like, I'm looking at this, we're working on 360 units right now, and we're paying $18 million for it. And it's just more zeros, right? But still, 18 million is a pretty unfathomable number for the vast majority of us out there that are, working a regular W-2. Where are we going to come up with a down 20% of $18 million? Are you serious? Mm-hmm. But through the power of syndication, which means that we take an asset and we leverage the ability of a lot of people to raise money and collectively put it into a pile and slide that across the table to the lender. And now we own this large asset, the whole collective. So you have, general partners, which put the deal together. And then you have LPs, which are all your investors. And they're going to be, somebody who's a GP and an LP. So like, we always invest in our own deals. So we're on both sides of the coin, but it allows us to take a small amount of money and leverage it to buy a large asset because we're pooling our resources.
Absolutely. Very well said. And as far as kind of, you had mentioned, it's a team sport. You also mentioned early on that you and your wife always aspire to, hey, we want to buy that building one day. And then, eventually you found a way to get there. Can you talk about the support system that you have with your family and how important that is, especially transitioning from W-2 over to full-time? And I know a lot of people tend to say, we need that strength. We need that support in order to get there. Can you talk about your experience in that?
Yeah. And I think that, having your family on board is really important, because if you can take the goal that you have and realize it through your family, wife and kids, it makes the fuel, if you will, it turns it into rocket fuel, because if everybody understands what dad is doing, because I sat all my kids down, I said, look, we're going to transition where our income comes from. And this is what we're going to be able to do right now. Your dad has 3 weeks of vacation, and, we have to save all year to go on vacation, and we can only go for 3 weeks. I said, what if we decided that we wanted to go live in Europe for 2 months? Would that be cool? Or let's say we want to jump in the travel trailer and do a whole US tour. And the great thing about it is that I can work from all those places. And or if I get a deal done and I have all the systems in place where I don't want to, work, but I want to be able to, go with my family and travel and then just have a meeting, like a once a day meeting. I mean, I have that latitude. And so I explained that to them, and that put them all on board. Now, what does that look like? So I work a regular, 9 to 5, 8 to 4:30 kind of gig. So my time to work on multifamily was in the morning. So optimally, I got up, I started getting up at 5 and realized that I didn't have enough time between 5 and 7 o'clock when I had to leave to go to work. So I began backing that up. Now I get up at 4. I get up at 4 and then I work on my business, and then I do my regular work. Now, the great thing about COVID, and I know that it sounds weird when you say something like that, but you have to look at the positive side, and the things that have allowed you to do things is that because I'm here at house, I'm working from home, and I have been working at home since February. I can work now. I can work longer because then I have a commute, so I can get up in the morning and I can work longer. Then I transition into my regular day job that I will have for another roughly 6 months when I retire. And then when I'm done in the evening, if I have some evening appointments, I can do those too. But that sounds like a lot of time. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're never going to have any time for the family. I do make time for my family, but the kids also understand that if I have meetings in the evenings, it's because I'm working on our goal to be financially independent. And the great thing about working in the morning is that a lot of the people are in this house are asleep anyway, so they're not really missing me. I just getting up before everybody else.
I love that, and I love the tenacity. And sitting down with the family and talking about the goals, and like I said, and having that kind of that realization that you guys are that close to it, just putting in a little bit of work and able to modify your schedule. Instead of 5, I'm gonna wake up at 4, just so I can get that extra hour to work on the business to make us get that much closer to reaching our goals. So that's awesome. I love hearing things like that. So you kind of broke down kind of like a typical work day. And along with that, is there any other additional special morning routines that kind of help you get ready mentally for that day?
I'm glad you asked me that because I didn't have a morning routine, and I've listened to all kinds of people talk about morning routines, whether it's Hal Elrod's morning routine or when I first listened to that, I'm like, I don't have time to do that. I mean, I barely have enough time to get done in the morning what I need to do. And the more I listened to different people, the more I found that what a lot of people do is they don't take that whole process may work for some people or maybe a lot of people, and it works for Hal Elrod, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so what other people I've heard do are take pieces of that, or they break it out through the day. So they can't get everything done because of time or whatever the case may be, that they can't get this whole morning routine done. So the morning routine gets shrunk down, and then maybe they do parts of it at lunch and maybe they do parts of it in the evening, but the components are there. And so one of the realizations that I came to while I needed to pivot for reasons that I couldn't go out that we've talked about already, is I needed to work on my brand, and my brand is me. And so some of the things, like I've never been very much of a prolific reader. I've never been a very fast reader, and I'm getting better. And I think that it just comes with practice but having the patience to sit down and read a book, I just like, well, I'll just do an audiobook. I'm in my truck an hour a day, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. I'll use that time to listen to an audiobook. And I do listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts and things like that when I'm in the vehicle. But I listened to Logan Freeman talk about and Jerome Myers talk about how having a book and reading a book and underlining in the book has a different impact on you. And so I've started reading books in the morning. So I'll get up in the morning, I'll make coffee, I'll sit down, I'll read for about 45 minutes. And then the new thing that I've been doing is meditating. And I've heard people talk about this, and not that I ever really poo-pooed it or thought it was dumb or anything. It's just like, I don't really need that, well, I'll look into that later. I don't have time. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to a podcast. It was a Tim Ferriss show, and Dan Harris was on there, and he was talking about meditation, and he was talking about all of the challenges that he had and the benefits that he got out of meditation. And so I kind of really looked at it in a different light. And so now I'm meditating in the morning, and so I read for about 45 minutes, and then I meditate for about 15 minutes, and then I go back and I read again, and then I'll typically go and write a post on LinkedIn, or I may do other things like I'm not journaling yet. I probably should start journaling. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he said, I was never a journaler. It's not that I thought it was dumb. It's just that he's like, I don't know what to write. Mm-hmm. You sit down and like, today was a good day. Well, there's my journal, and what he told me, he says, I journal right after I meditate. He says, it's amazing how this stuff flows out of me after I meditated, mm-hmm. and then I'm able to write it down. And I guess the other thing that with meditation is that it's always been kind of this weird I'm trying to think of the word that I would use. It's more of like if you, in Christian circles, meditation, they say meditation's bad, stay away from it. It's an emptying of your mind. You don't want to have your mind devoid of things, because when you have your mind devoid of things, then the bad stuff creeps in. Mm-hmm. And that's really not what meditation is at all. Mm-hmm. Meditation is really, if you think about your mind as a muscle, and you're learning as exercising that muscle, there are, if anybody out there practices martial arts, and I don't, but I'm just using that as an example, they call it a discipline. Mm-hmm. And that's really what meditation is you're learning how to discipline your mind. Because when you sit down and you try and meditate, and it still happens to me, and I haven't been meditating that long, and I got a friend of mine who meditates, and he's ADD, and I can only imagine what he's going through. But I sit down to meditate, and my mind goes into revolt mode, and it's just all of a sudden turns into a pinball machine, and it's going ding, 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 ding. Flying in and out of my brain. I'm thinking about all this different stuff. And the whole idea of meditation is to concentrate on, the basic thing is concentrating on your breath, for example. And your mind is going to wander. And the whole point of it is to recognize that your mind is wandering and bring it back into focus. Mm. And then stay focused. Then your mind, something's going to happen. Your mind will wander off, but you'll recognize that and make a note of it, and you'll bring it back into focus. And by doing that, I'm starting to see things like when I'm talking to people, I listen better, and I hear what they're saying better. And it allows me to understand, because there's a difference between hearing and understanding. Mm-hmm. And it allows me to reply in a more thoughtful manner, mm-hmm. whether it's somebody I'm working with or whether it's my wife or my kids. And so I think meditation is good in that respect. And so I'm going to, since I just heard this last night about the whole journaling after meditation, that's probably where I'm going to go next is I'm going to read, meditate, journal, and then I'll probably end up reading again. Because right now I'm in the middle of 2 books at the same time. And I don't want to read one without reading the other because both of them have really good stuff in them. So, I mean, this one right here is the, well, you know, don't you just love the backgrounds?
Yeah, right.
The obstacle is the way. And then this other one that I'm working on here is, if I can get it to show up. Oh man, I'm gonna have to figure out how to work that. Anyway,
What
how about
book
if
is
I
that?
put it next
Yeah,
to
just
me?
read it.
No,
Yeah,
it
just
still
read it off.
doesn't work. Anyway, it's called the Coaching Habit.
Nice, nice.
And it's all about asking questions instead of giving advice, which I think is a pretty cool approach to things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's like I'm just thinking about, like, I really love this portion of the interviews that I talk to all of the guests about, because I kind of hear about like the stuff that they use in order to, you know, reach their goals and, you know, improve their stuff. And time again, I'm asking the same question, and they always tell me about meditation and reading and writing and things like that, and it just makes so much more difference. And the thing I also like is like you're be able to listen better, and that's very important when you have, you know, kids and the family, and you know, better communication, and even investors and sponsors and partners. And then you're also learning about how to ask better questions and learn more, and it kind of absorb more. It kind of makes you overall a better person. And that's I think you had mentioned that opportunity that you got during this pandemic, which kind of allow you to kind of focus on that more, which is going to improve your life overall. So I really love that stuff. That's awesome. And as far as kind of the, I know you're IT guy, you're probably into systems and everything. Are you using any particular systems, like electronically or manually, that you use to make yourself more productive during the day?
Yes, the short answer would be, and although I will say that I struggle with some of that, because being able to administer a system and then being able to like do a web page and getting landing pages and all this stuff working is really out of my wheelhouse. And this is the other thing that I'm learning, is that things that aren't in my wheelhouse, rather than take the time to learn them, it's really better to hire somebody else to do them. And you always hear people say that, and you go like, oh, sure, you probably have, you know, plenty of cash. Well, no, I don't. but I understand, and this is where I'm really learning to value my time, because and I have another book over here by Perry Marshall in it, and he talks about, are you doing the $10 an hour jobs, or are you doing the $1,000 an hour jobs? And you need to be doing the $1,000 an hour jobs and getting somebody else to do the $10 an hour jobs. And I'm really taking that to heart, because it was like I was listening to Whitney Sewell yesterday, and he was talking about getting his podcast started, and he sat down and he really determined what tasks would make the podcast move forward, and basically kind of their priority, and what he should be working on and what he shouldn't be working on. And I think that when we get into an entrepreneurial venture, everybody does everything. I mean, we're in money conservation mode, right? I mean, we think that by farming it out that we're wasting money, and I get that. I mean, I'm in the same boat, but at the same time, you have to look at whether you're doing the right tasks to make yourself grow exponentially, or are you doing all of the tasks to make yourself grow slow. And I think that everybody really needs to stand back and look at the tasks they're doing, and then determine how fast they want to grow. Some people don't want to grow fast. Some people want us to slow and steady growth, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to grow exponentially, you really need to figure out what tasks are the most important tasks, and then get somebody else to do all the other tasks. And it's like Whitney was saying yesterday when I was listening to this podcast, you don't have to hire a VA in for 40 hours a week. They can work for 30 hours a week. And if you're paying somebody out of, like the Philippines, for example, they have very good VAs in the Philippines, and you can typically get them between $4 and $6 an hour. And if you're using somebody for 4 or 5 hours, you're $30 a week. And I mean, if you really needed to trim somewhere to be able to afford that $30 a week, I know this is going to sound accusatory, but I mean, how many of us stop at Starbucks, right, and buy that latte, and we're spending $5 a day on that? Well, let's say we, don't buy as many lattes or buy one every other day or something. Now, all of a sudden, we can afford a VA. And then when we get that growth that's skyrocketing because we made sacrifices and we did the right thing by not doing the tasks that don't make us the most money, now we can go back to affording our daily latte kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
And so that I kind of ran off because I think you were asking me about systems. The biggest thing that I've working on is systematizing everything. I mean, you hear a lot about that. Make everything automatic, and that's really what I want to do. Is I want to be able to have somebody come in to the website, hit a click funnel, and it funnels it on down. Right now, I've got a website. I got MailChimp. I use HubSpot, and so somebody hits my website, and if they're clicking through, they're doing it one of two ways. They're either scheduling an appointment to talk with me, which I use Calendly, or they're getting on my mailing list, which puts them onto MailChimp. Then Calendly and HubSpot have an integration. So if anybody schedules an appointment with me on Calendly, it automatically dumps them into my HubSpot CRM. And if anybody schedules, or if anybody gets on my mailing list, it also goes over to my HubSpot. And so I get all my names in HubSpot, and then I'm able to, if I'm talking to an investor, I can pull up their name and I can take notes right in there.
Exactly.
HubSpot's free. If you want to use some of the more advanced features, they have bundled packages that you can buy. But if you're looking for a great CRM that's free, that HubSpot, and the integration with MailChimp and the integration with Calendly doesn't cost any extra. So, I mean, I do pay for Calendly and I do pay for MailChimp. So the things that I need to work on are like drip campaigns and some other marketing things that I really need to offload because, I mean, just face the fact, I suck at them. I'm not good at them. So I definitely need to find somebody else to do them. I could take the time to learn them because I figure I'm smart that way. But again, is that a good use of my time? And I'd say no.
Absolutely. Yeah, very well said. And like I said, that's a lot of used tips there. I love the whole mindset thing and talking to you about system. Me and you both integrate there. I love that. As far as I know you seem like a very deep person and like very close to your family and things like that. Can you tell me, what you're most grateful for?
Wow. You asked me that before we went on the air, and I'm like, it's not that I really have to think about it. It's a pretty deep question. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my Savior. And so those things are very dear to me. And I think that, having a wife that loves you, kids that are awesome, and that the wife relationship is the most important, next to your relationship with your, if you believe in Jesus or whoever your creator is, that's the most important. And then the second is my relationship with my wife, because that relationship that I have with my wife, it's modeled to my kids, which then they take and apply towards a relationship that they have. And it's perpetuated. And so, my kids are going to grow up and move out. My wife shouldn't be doing that. So, my wife and I are going to be together forever. So that's my main focus. But I'm grateful for those relationships. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to participate in this great industry we call real estate. And I know that kind of sounds like a little cheesy answer as far as the real estate part, but I think I really am. I mean, I think I am fortunate because the relationships that I've forged in this, that's probably another benefit from this whole COVID thing, with the not being able to get out and go to networking. I mean, how many networking events do you go to? You're all well-intentioned. You're going to go, I'm going to meet all these people and I'm going to shake a bunch of hands. And there are people out there that do it, but then there are people out there that get there and then there's just this overwhelming amount of people and you meet 3 people and that was your weekend. And this whole thing with getting online with Zoom, a lot of people don't like Zoom, but I think it's great because I have had so many face-to-face conversations and that are deeper than you would have at an event where you just go like, hey, how's it going? I see you're in multifamily, where do you have assets? All of the standard questions, right? And I find that when I get on a Zoom call with somebody, we still talk about that stuff, but I mean, it seems like I get to know the person better because you're standing, you're virtually standing in a room that there's no one else around. There's no distractions. So you can really pay attention to the person and they can pay attention to you. And I think that's been a really good thing as far as what we've been experiencing over the last almost year now.
Exactly. And yeah, exactly. It's like when I do these interviews, I love doing them because it's not only I'm, providing a lot of value and content to the listeners, but I'm also getting to meet you for the first time and, learn about your backstory and all the things that you just told us. And this has been great. And like I said, you don't get that same intimate, of course, you want to, be human and go out there and meet people in person. But like I said, you can get, really good, intimate relationships, through online. And that's kind of one of the benefits that did, come out of, things that happened last year. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing absolutely. That. And like always, we're going to make sure have the contact information in the show notes and blast this out to our network so we can get in contact with you. But can you share your contact information for us so we can know how to get in touch?
Absolutely. You can get me on email, Rodney at Solaris CM for capital management, solariscm.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, just go out and search me up. You should be able to find me pretty easy. And I do cross post on Facebook. I would probably say I'm more active on LinkedIn. And so email, LinkedIn, hit my website, which is solariscm.com. There's links on there to get in touch with me, phone numbers, email addresses. You can set up a call with me through a Calendly link on there. So yeah, awesome. I'd love to hear from people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look forward to that. Yeah. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Happy New Year to you. All the best to you and the family and continued success. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you, Dwaine. I appreciate the invitation and you have a very successful year yourself.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Hey there, this is Dwaine Clarke, your host of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. I want to thank you again for tuning in and hope you're enjoying this valuable content. While I got you for a quick minute, I wanted to send you an invitation to join our growing investor community. It's called the Passive Investors Club. It's a group of like-minded individuals like you who are seeking financial freedom and to build true wealth through passive investing in commercial real estate. We take a totally different approach to investing that is opposite, that is pushed by the financial advisors and what we see in the mainstream media. We like to invest in real assets that we can touch and understand and that are not subject to the wild swings of the financial markets. We don't want to be part of the herd who pursues the traditional route, leaving our financial future to Wall Street. So if you're interested in joining our group and to share in resources and opportunities, then go to passiveinvestorsclub.com/join. Joining the club is completely free and there's no obligation. And all our members receive our free Passive Investors course along with tons of resources and content. So again, passiveinvestorsclub.com/join.